guys, as you can already tell, today I'm going to show you and talk to you about the new BMW X1. The car was launched last year and to some great reviews. Everybody seemed to love it, even though it changed platforms. Now, what does that exactly mean? It means that instead of the old brilliant rear-wheel drive X1 that we got in the first place, now we're dealing with a car based on the UKL platform. In case you're not up to par with BMW lingo, the UKL platform is the modular front-wheel drive one. You get for the mini range and for the 2 Series Active Tourer range right now. In the future, more cars will be using it both from BMW and under the Mini logo. Now, the reasons why BMW adopted the UKL platform for the X1 are pretty obvious. The previous car was deemed to be too crowded, too narrow for practical use. It was a crossover after all, and everybody wanted to use it as practical as possible. Well, with the rear-wheel drive layout, that wasn't actually possible. Chip in the 3-liter engines that were sitting under the bonnet, that were brilliant, but they took up a lot of space, and you get the idea. Now, the new model only uses 2-liter engines. It's a front-wheel drive model, so it has the engine mounted transversely and offers a lot more room inside. You can feel that as soon as you get in. Speaking of the interior, you get a lot of space. You get a dashboard that offers great visibility. You get everything inside looks as it does on the 2 Series Active Tourer. Inside there's a lot more room. The transmission tunnel is removed if you're going for a front-wheel drive model, but the one I'm testing today is fitted with all-wheel drive. This is not a traditional all-wheel drive system BMW got us used to. Instead, it's one that's based on a front-wheel drive platform, so it will only send power to the rear when it feels the need to do so. That means handling has gone down a bit. It's not as good as the E87 model was. E89, no.
Turn right.
It's not as good as on the previous model. Now, what does that exactly mean? It means you get a noticeable understeer, which wasn't the case on the old model. You'll feel it as if you carry too much speed into a corner, or if you're going into it a bit more aggressively than you should. You can get the car to oversteer, but you'll have to work a lot harder for it, turning off the electronic nannies and all of that. Now, considering the demographic the BMW appeals to with this car, this move seems to be a successful one. The X1 is already one of the best-selling models in the range, so their bet was good. They came out on top. For enthusiasts such as like myself, it may be a downgrade, but I can agree with the arguments they provide. There is a lot of room inside, especially compared to the previous model. The car I'm testing is an xDrive20i model, which uses a 2-liter petrol engine making 192 horsepower. It's a new generation engine that you can also find on the Mini Cooper S. It has plenty of pull. It's quite fast off the line. It won't let you down no matter what you're trying to do, because the car is also light on its feet. It's only about 1.4 tons in weight, including the xDrive system and all of that. So it's pretty swift off the line. The issue you'll have with it though is fuel consumption. Yesterday I traveled for about 200 kilometers, like 125 miles. The average I recorded was about 7 liters per 100 kilometers, but I have to tell you that I kept it really slow. The average speed was only 70 kilometers an hour. So if you want to travel at highway speeds, as we get here in Europe, the speed limit is 130 kilometers an hour, that's gonna sip a lot more fuel. Around town it's also quite thirsty. You'll get numbers over 10 liters of petrol per 100 kilometers covered, and that's not great. That's probably why the best-selling models for the current X1 are diesel ones that are extremely frugal, have plenty of torque, plenty of grunt. You won't feel any issues trying to overtake or anything like that with them. Now, what I also have to mention about this car is that it has the M Sport package, which I totally do not recommend. What it does to the car is turn it into an absolute nightmare, especially for those with bad backs. The suspension is extremely hard on you. It stiffens up the entire car, so it doesn't really make sense. It could make sense, but only on the xDrive20i models. Those are the top of the range, most powerful units, 231 horsepower. But even then, due to the front wheel drive biased setup, you won't have as much fun as you used to in the older models. So most people will probably get the standard X1 without the M Sport package. What this brings is an exterior package with bigger air inlets in the front bumper, and these Alcantara seats with hexagonal blue stitching that I should also tell you are not great. They're really hard. Your backs will probably hurt after covering a couple hundred kilometers, so can't really recommend them either. Now, in terms of driving feel, as I told you, the car understeers quite heavily, and what I also noticed the first time I got inside is the fact that the brake is acting up a bit unusual to my taste. What I'm trying to say is that you get a pretty incisive initial bite, and then the brake starts to fade off. Now, this is something I noticed on all UKL cars, so it might be something BMW purposely built in, but it gets it asks quite a lot of getting used to. Once you get used to it, you can drive the car comfortably no matter what. Another thing I noticed about the X1 is that it is a bit loud, especially on the highway. I'm guessing the round flat tires don't help in this regard, don't help too much in this regard either, but I just had to point it out. Other than that, so to do a small recap of everything I said, the new model is more efficient than the old one, has more space, is more versatile, but at the same time it lost some of its magic. Now, people loved the old X1 because it felt like a jacked up 3 Series Touring. It was great to drive, it was confident on the road, and provided thrills you didn't expect.
In 600 meters,
now, all of that is gone at the trade-off of more practicality and making it an overall better package, which it is, but it depends on what you're trying to get. If you're trying to get a practical car for your family that doesn't have dynamic capabilities, sure, you'll be set. The car is pretty cheap, and you'll be comfortable. You have a high ground clearance, you'll be okay. But if you're trying to consider the X1 as a great handling car that edges the competition in this regard, you might have a surprise. Speaking of competition, this car goes up against the Mercedes GLA and the Audi Q3. Now, both of those cars are also front-wheel drive biased. They are based on front-wheel drive platforms, so in terms of handling, you probably will be better off with the BMW still. Now, the BMW, on the other hand, offers the most room out of the 3 of them, which is surprising for a BMW. Usually this is where Mercedes or Audi have the edge, but it's no longer the case. The X1 looks better, to my, at least if you ask me, looks better and has more room, so it's therefore more practical. So now we arrive at the conclusion and at the pricing issue. It has become somewhat of cliche for reviewers to say that BMWs are expensive. Well, the reason they do that is because they do have high price tags. Now, this model starts at just under 40,000 euros. cheapen the optional features we have, and this is not a completely kitted out car, and you end up about 57,000 euros, which is, if that's not a lot for a crossover of this size, I don't know what is. And as I said, this is not a fully kitted out car. Prices can get even higher, so you might want to be mindful with your optional list. Overall, I like the car for what it is. If you look at it as a practical family car, it is brilliant. It has plenty of space, plenty of storage spaces throughout the cabin. You can actually use the door bends. But if you're looking for it to be as dynamic as you want it to be, it's not going to. You're better off with the X3. The new X3 is coming out in 2018, so you might want to hold off.